thanks for giving me first pick, Nick.
Yeah, no worries.
It should be good here to go first in the West. I think like yourself, you said you had a lot of names in the West, yeah, and I've got a lot of names here in the West too. So I think any fundamental team here that you're going to build a franchise with has to have a cornerstone player that is a sort of a once in a lifetime sort of talent. And honestly, I think in the West, especially, excluding big names like, say, LeBron, who's obviously now at his tail end of his career, there's not that many players that are at that point yet. Some might get there in the next few years, but I think there's one name that stands out since you're giving me the first pick in the West here, that I'll go with two-time MVP and the big man here, Nikola Jokic for Serbia is my first pick. He's only 27. I realized that the other day when I was looking up some of their ages. All right, and he's still got plenty of good years up his sleeve. I'm starting with a big man here. Jokic is my first pick.
So I'm kind of shocked because my draft board looks slightly different to yours. So my guess is I'm going to take your second pick when you took my second pick. I'm also going a little bit younger and maybe doesn't have the accolades just yet, but it's kind of proven in the playoffs and the regular season that there's a lot of talent there. And if you build around this player, you'd have a lot of success. So with the second pick, I would take Luka Doncic.
All right, third pick in the West here. Having a look at a few names that are in front of me. I've got a big man already. I've locked that one in. I don't think there's a better talent in the West at the 5 spot. And, so I'm pretty happy there. So Jokic is a great pick for me as far as I'm concerned because he fills a lot of things. He can pass the ball, he can shoot, and he can rebound, all right? And he fills the paint, okay? So I'm going to need to really put some quality spacing, I think, on the floor here. You've taken Luka. So I'm going to go and take with the second pick here my third pick of the West here, my second pick. I'm going to take Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns because he can shoot and he can stretch the floor. And if he's not the number one option on a team, I think he's going to play much better, especially in the playoffs. So I'm going with Booker.
All right. I'm not too worried about Devin Booker being taken. He was on my board, but life will go on. I'm going to go with another wing that is pretty athletic, has shown some spurts as well, but also has the age factor. I feel like my franchise that I'm drafting here has a good future where they can grow together and be relatively impressive. So Luka is going to have the predominant ball handling duties with this player to defer to or help out when needed, but also get some easier shots and shot creation. And that player is Anthony Edwards.
All right, that was a good pick. Edwards is high on my list, but that's okay. Just like you can live with Booker being off the board, I can live with Anthony Edwards off the board. I also feel good here because you've picked 2 guards now, so you're leaving me the rest of the field here in the guards position. I think I really like that. So that's actually going to help strategically how I go here with my next pick, because it makes no sense for me to pick a guard right now because I can pick any single guard. So as far as I'm concerned, unless you're somehow going with some 3-guard lineup or something for your franchise, I'm not too sure. So so looking at the big man spots here. It's funny, you're gonna laugh at this one. I got Draymond on my list here, but I'm gonna feel confident that you're not necessarily gonna take Draymond, okay? But I'm gonna, considering I've taken Jokic at the 5. Jokic can stretch the floor, he can knock down that 3 at a high clip, and he can make that pass from the high post or at the top of the key. All right. With what pick are we up to? 5th pick of the West here. I'm going to go with a little bit. You might say this is a risky pick, but I think if he can get his body healthy, he's the perfect complement to Jokic and the shooting talents of Booker. So I'm going to take Zion Williamson in the 5th pick here in the West.
All right, that's he was potentially going to be my small ball center, and I was going to have some, some interesting lineup there. But with him off the board, I guess I'll take another injury-prone center, but maybe with a little bit better of a track record, a bit more, versatility on the defensive end, with the ability to pick and pop, and I think would pair really well with Luka in a lob threat. So, with the 6th pick, I'm going with Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis. All right. Let's be clear here. We're not talking about picking teams here playing a head-to-head game. So it's not necessarily my team versus your team in a high stakes situation. We're talking about potentially a 31st and 32nd franchise coming to the league, and somehow they've chosen me and you to start these teams up. Not sure why they would, but because clearly we're picking wisely here. So, and I think that's an area here where I'm not going to make these picks based upon what you're sort of deciding. I'm going to make the picks based upon what's best for this franchise that I've just been tasked to build. So with my 7th pick here, and obviously the players that I've already selected, I've got a big man that can shoot, stretch the floor, 2-time MVP, still in his prime. Okay, we've got Zion that if he can stay healthy, smashes it inside, has the highest percentage since Shaq inside the paint here. And if he's the only man operating inside the paint, because you got to stretch your big man out to guard Jokic at the top of the key. All right, you got Booker on the wing there knocking down threes at a high clip. All right, I'm going to add this player here that really gives you that facilitator between those two spots here. And no doubt, probably one day, fingers crossed, he doesn't go down a D Rose path where his knees give out on him. He's probably going to be an MVP. So I'm going with the 7th pick. I'm going with Ja Morant. All right. He's going to give me that slashing guard here that's still young enough and talented enough to grow and get better. And he doesn't have to do too much. And I think he's shown he's got the personality to be able to, not necessarily be the number one option when it's not his night every single night. I think he could really shine in this sort of situation.
All right. Well, I think what's happened naturally now is that I'm probably building a team with a lot of length and a lot of playmakers, because Luka, I think a lot of people want Luka to be a traditional point guard, and obviously he's very, dynamic with how he creates. And I've got Anthony Edwards sitting there, who's very athletic and is kind of developing those playmaking skills and will benefit off Luka. And Anthony Davis, who will play the defensive role, but then, also can be the lob threat towards Luka. And so this player is probably an upgraded version of Anthony Edwards in terms of his playmaking, his ability to ISO, but I'm doubling down on the length. So, currently, 6'6" is really as short as I'm going. So with the 8th pick, I am going with Brandon Ingram.
Okay, 9th pick here in the West. My last pick here to fill up my starting 5 effectively. I feel like I'm going to take my full 90 seconds here to look at my draft board. Yeah, this is my last pick here. I want to pick right. I've got a fair few names still on my list here that I would like to take, but I'm not going to, because I share virtual of one spot only. I think with the last spot, there's one name that jumps out on this list. And I think with the 4 that I've already got, the balance that I got from shooters, passers, big man that dominate the paint, slashing guards that love getting to the rim at the moment, both Booker and Ja Morant can get to the rim and draw fouls and beat the man on the dribble. This last pick might not necessarily fit the model of that player that, is going to be at the franchise piece for a long time. But I think he's got enough left in the tank that by making this last pick in the 9th pick here, puts my team over the top and straight into the championship conversation in the first year as a franchise. So with my 9th pick here, and I'm thanking you because you've left him on the board. I wasn't sure if you'd go this way. I'm going to take another 2-time MVP, the greatest shooter of all time. I'm going to take Steph Curry. All right. I think he's got plenty of years up his sleeve still. And I think he is the missing piece here between the 4 other players that takes my team over the top.
It was interesting because you were building it up. You were talking about the tank. You were talking about end of the career stuff. And I was naturally thinking that you were going to go with the player that I'm going to select. I think the rationale, and I'll probably have to go into a little bit more, is, this player is notorious for having people revolve around him, and everyone always criticizes, too ball dominant, or you have to fit his style of player, or else it doesn't work. I really feel like going into what is essentially year 20, looking at the roster that they've got, is they would happily do the Swiss Army knife role where they only score 10 to 18 points. They dish out a couple of assists. They play some decent defense, and let the young guys do the running. Let the young guys kind of do the playmaking, but have that expertise and veteran leadership to guide them along the way. So obviously, I'm going with what would probably safely be regarded as the second greatest player of all time, LeBron James, with the 10th pick in this draft.
I must admit, this might be the funnest podcast we've had, since we've started.
Yeah.
I think that was a good, fun topic, and it's one that's obviously quite opinionated. Obviously, we've got our own opinions on what's a successful basketball team and which players would fit in that sort of role. And I guess you'll get a chance to break down my team a little bit here. But I'm going to say, so you basically just picked the LA Lakers and filled a few pieces around them. That's what it looks like.
It's two players. It was two players.
So you've got AD, who's injury prone, okay? And I guess, if he can get healthy, sure, he's probably a top 15 talent in the league. I'm not going to say top 10 anymore. Okay, there's many upcoming players, I think. All right. Then you got LeBron, who's got something left in the tank, but I'm going to tell you, I don't believe he's got much left in the tank compared to, say, Steph Curry. Okay, comparing his style of play and comparing his body of work, a couple more years left, tops, 2 to 3. Okay, he could play longer, but he's no longer be dominant. Okay, Steph Curry, I think, again, staying healthy, he's probably got at least a good 6 years left. Okay, and the sort of role that he plays as a shooter, I think it's one that's highly valuable. You can think of so many shooters that played late into their 30s because they could simply fill a spot by stretching the floor and gravity towards them as a shooter. Okay, and obviously still assisting a team that was highly successful. I think I think the best pick here that I love that you picked obviously was Ingram. Okay, it's funny because you said in your picks that you said Ingram was an upgrade on Anthony Edwards, but you picked Anthony Edwards before Ingram, even though you felt like you were rating him, and in all opinion, he probably is a better player at this stage, even though at a different position than Anthony Edwards. So I do like those picks. They were definitely names on my list too, and Luka was on my list. Okay, Luka was on my list, yeah. And he was your first pick. So obviously he was your cornerstone. You're saying that you're going to build this team around him. But we had a chat about this. Maybe it was off recording, off the record. He's a hard player to build around. Okay, you're basically asking Luka either that he's not going to play how Luka plays, where the ball's in his hand and he makes all these choices. And literally, these other players don't make these choices. LeBron, mate, you don't need to make choices. You're the second all time, but let Luka have the ball in his hands. You just go and do what you do now, okay? That's not LeBron. That Luka is LeBron 15 seasons ago. Okay, that's the thing, okay? That's why I was happy you took like Luka. I think he's a really challenging player to build around, okay? And I guess I probably wouldn't have gone that way. That's my opinion.
I think the thing is, I took the challenge of building around Luka. So I looked at Luka and I said he needs playmakers around him who he can trust and he can create open shots for. Anthony Edwards is in his second year already kind of developing that 3-point shot. So for me, I'm banking on some confidence that with more set shots, he can get that field goal percentage up. So right now he's sitting at about 35%, but he does take a lot of difficult shots. So Luka should assist that. In terms of Anthony Davis, you saw the potency of him and LeBron James for the pick and roll combo. So for Anthony Davis, it seems like a no-brainer. And Luka really hasn't played with a lob threat just yet. In terms of Brandon Ingram, he's that lanky defender who can compensate for Luka, e.g., Luka is not going to take the best player on the other team for defense, but Brandon Ingram is more than competent of that. Anthony Edwards is young enough for that. Anthony Davis has the cover. And then LeBron James, I get it. 10 years ago, it doesn't work because LeBron needs the ball and it's building around him. But I sincerely feel LeBron understands that. Well, look, I would like to assume that LeBron understands he needs extra championships for this legacy. And he probably does need to be the alpha player to get credit against Michael's, 6 rings. But I think he also could do a supplementary role where he does kind of what happened in Cleveland with Kyrie Irving, right? So he understood that Kyrie Irving was a closer and he did everything else. You could easily see a playoffs going the way where regular season LeBron had 18, 20 points per game, and then you get to the playoffs, and that's when he has his 25, 30 because he's paced himself throughout the season. And then also, like, Luka does do a lot, but he does a lot on teams that so far historically have not been very good, right? And have very up and down players and performances that don't, really rise to the occasion on a consistent basis. So, LeBron hopefully imparts this wisdom for the next season or 2 seasons, right? Anthony Davis, depending on his health, gets us a championship within that 2-year window, but then maybe becomes a trade chip, assuming that he can have a decent enough season. And then the real 2 cornerstones are Luka and Anthony Edwards. That's who I felt like if I had to carry them 10 years down the track, those are the 2. But obviously, when you're getting 5 all NBA caliber players or all-star players, you really can't go too wrong. So, when we looked at yours, Jokic was second on my list because obviously a center that is as diverse as him is a big factor. But then one of the cons for Jokic is that he does get burned on defensive schemes. So, people will deliberately look for him in a pick and roll, or he's just not able to guard the perimeter the same. So offensively, he's incredible, but then defensively, there's that liability. Devin Booker, we've seen him survive as a solo player for a long time on a losing team, and then Chris Paul comes along and that sets him up. I personally felt like him and Luka would have been paired really well if I was able to draft them, but that didn't play out. Zion Williams, small ball center, but also quite ball dominant, and then that competes with Ja Morant. I really feel like their play styles are very similar, where they want to slash and they want to go in a lot, and the shooting's a bit inconsistent. And then Steph Curry, I mean, we've had this debate before, but Steph Curry might be beneficiary of just a system, right? So like he's akin to Tim Duncan in the sense of how different is the career if they don't have the franchise built around them the way that they did. And, it's not to take away the greatness, and he's still a great player, but does the career take the same trajectory? That's the difficult part. And I like my lineup. I feel like, we're more athletic and I outsize you immensely.
I'll give you that one. I do absolutely agree. You've got a slightly bigger lineup, but you're going to have to chase my guards all over the floor. I think, look, in all honesty, it would be nice if my backcourt here was bigger. I think both players are probably listed about 6'3". Okay, but I'm going to say that being able to stretch the floor and the shooting ability of obviously Curry, no doubt, Booker, and Jokic from the perimeter really opens up the lanes for both Zion and Ja to do what they do best. I think that was my logic here. And look, there's definitely, maybe that's the part where it's probably tough, where you're probably not picking a defensive stopper in your first 5 picks as a franchise. So that's probably a big point there. And the other point here, looking at my list as you were sort of making those comments about size, there's in the West specifically, there's probably no one else that is a backcourt player that is significant of size. SGA is on my list, but to me, it wasn't a pick over that. And the other players here that were on my list are probably even less tested than him. I guess, look, I like my list. I like the championship experience that there is on my list, and I like the MVP, resumes and skill sets that's on my list. And I think there's a mixture there of obviously players that are young and veterans that can really go far.